Welcome back to Learning the Tarot. Today we are talking about the Five of Swords. So the Five of Swords, again, it's weird. So normally the two books have been going really well. Like with all of the wands, they like basically the same message, a little different here and there. This time, completely different. Honestly, at this point, I am leaning more towards just using the other book, the Modern Witchcraft Guide to the Tarot, and wondering if I need to get a secondary book because they're not even remotely the same. So for the Idiot's Guide to the Tarot, this card was definitely not, it didn't feel like it was the same energy as from the Modern Witchcraft Guide to the Tarot. It just didn't have the same message, and really Idiot's Guide is really leaning heavily towards just the imagery in the card, whereas Modern Witchcraft Guide, that book is using the premise of the card, little bit of imagery, not that much though. And I feel like that's a better approach to the tarot, and I don't know if other people have experienced that, because again, this is a learning together like thing. And so like, I don't know, has anyone else experienced this? Because like, I'm sitting here going like, okay, I get it. The main like generic sort of deck that everyone talks about, we should probably keep in mind, but not every deck follows that imagery, and like there's more to those cards and the symbolism with it than just what the picture is in like the Rider-Waite. And so it was just very strange, because where Modern Witchcraft Guide, either way it was, up or reversed, this card was like the after effects of a conflict. The Idiot's Guide says otherwise, that if it's upright, you're preparing for a battle, and it's like the young boy's excited to go to war, and I'm like, that doesn't seem like the same energy at all. And that it's like a lack of concern and whatever, and like sensitivity to others, and I'm like, what? Like, the other book is describing it as like the cleanup and like the regret and remorse that you might have after like a war, and just like slightly different ways of how to handle that situation, where you have like, oh, well, I probably should have handled that differently, versus, and I'll get to that when we talk about my notes, but where it's like you're the PR trying to fix the situation, except you're the one that also caused it. Like that sort of vibe, versus happily, like excitedly being like, we're gonna go to war. Like, it's so weird. And even with it reversed, it's still like they're going into battle, but in the like upright position, Idiot's Guide is saying that it's supposed to be like deception and sneaky, and then that just doesn't exist in the reversed version. And that you still have a chance of winning, but it might not be a big win. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is maybe why we need to have three sources, but Silver Ravenwolf's book was just like literally off on its own planet for the other like suit that we did entirely, so I'm like, I don't feel like that one. But like, I don't know, this is so weird. So anyways, most of my notes are just my take from Modern Witchcraft Guide for this reason, because it's like, what? So like I mentioned earlier, this is like the after a fight or a conflict has happened card. Upright, this is the time to assess the damages, the losses, the wins from whatever that conflict was. And usually through that realization, this is when you might realize that your wins weren't worth the cost. How you would put that into a situation could really vary. There are examples, you could kind of figure it out. If you're going into a conflict, no matter what, there's always good, bad, and ugly to deal with, right? And so, like, I was thinking about it and I was like, well, whatever conflict you've got, whether you were the, like, victor or, like, the defeated, either way, both sides are going to experience loss of some kind, and the fight itself will cause issues both ways, whether it's a fight with a loved one or a friend, and, like, either way, like, that relationship is going to have damage, and whatever might have been said in the heat of the moment might have damaged the other person, and, like, how they thought you viewed them might be, you know, like, you've got a lot of things, and so it feels like the upright position is, like, the analysis of it, and, like, looking at it and thinking about, like, all of the pieces, basically, and then the reversed is more feeling the remorse and guilt and sadness that comes with the loss of whatever that conflict was. And, like, the reversed is also, like, the cleanup after that. And really, anytime there's a war, like, there is a mass amount of cleanup involved, And whether we're thinking like grand scale, like look at any war pretty much in history, eventually the people have to rebuild where the soldiers went and demolished everything. Like, it's inevitable. That's part of it. That's not the fun part, but that's the reverse. Like, all I could think of is like any time we learned about wars, like the cleanup part of it. And like, I kind of was thinking mostly of like in American history where we had the Civil War and then we had the cleanup effort afterwards. Issues all the way around. American history is super complicated, but there was the cleanup effort, and we learned about that in a lot of detail. And so I think back to that like idea of like going and like having to fix buildings, having to fix roads, having to fix like the economy of like the chaos that they caused. Like there's a lot of the cleanup aspect, and that's what it feels like this card reversed is all about. Now if we're taking it out of the war context and bringing it more to like our daily lives, I feel like this would be like the equivalent where you're gonna be everybody involved, but think of like when a company or a celebrity messes up and the PR team has to come in and be like, oh my god, what did you do? And they have to fix it. They have to figure out your apology video, your apology tweet, your game plan to get the public opinion good again. Like, how are you fixing this? And it feels like you're the one that might have caused it, but maybe not, depending on how your card like layout is. Because honestly, sometimes we do get caught in the crossfire of other people's chaos, and you're the one that still is going to have to pick up the pieces for everyone around you. Is that a good thing? Not necessarily. But the swords are the cards that are mean. Like, that's the whole message of this entire suit, it feels like. And so, like, thinking of it as being like that PR person who has to fix everything, that kind of feels more like where the upright is like you're trying to just like analyze everything and it's kind of more like a reserved and like reflective time. This is more like the active having to deal with it and be like, how do I fix this? How can we like pick up from this point? Basically, you're just gonna be playing damage control, however you want to view that, from whatever that conflict, war thing was in your life. It could be big, it could be small, but like that's what it seems like the Five of Swords is all about. And so I don't know what the other book was going off about for this being like, we're more chummy about still going off to battle. It didn't fit. So anyways, I really like how Modern Witchcraft Guide to the Tarot covered this card. I am questioning how much I need to trust the Idiot's Guide because, I don't know, like that's the thing with this, like going through learning the tarot series together. Like, with the runes, we kind of went through something similar, where it was like, eventually I narrowed down the books I was using to just the two, and even then, sometimes I conflicted in their opinions on stuff, but for the most part, it was kind of consistent. But like, the tarot is so huge, it's such a big community, that it's like, is this book just off? And like, realistically, how many people are like, looking at these books, comparing them against each other? Because I feel like a lot of times when people learn the tarot, you get like one or two books maybe, and like for the most part you're looking at the guidebook that comes with your specific deck more than these books, and like comparing them actively against each other card by card. Like for the most part, like if you were learning all about witchcraft and you got to the tarot section in Silver Ravenwolf's book, you'd be like, ah, okay, cool. Brief summaries of them, great. Move on with your life. And like, if you wanted to dive into tarot, like, you would grab these books and be like, oh cool, they got all of this information, great, when I need to know that, it's there. Like, I don't think too many people are doing what I'm doing, where it's like, I have the two, and I'm using those two as my main source of notes, and then my own interpretations and thoughts on them, and then putting that in one document together. Because, like, I feel like most people don't do that. I think that's my Ravenclaw coming out. But, like, seriously, like, I don't know. How many other ways could you really, like, interpret these cards? Like, I feel like there's kind of a baseline of these, but also maybe it changes. So anyways, those are my thoughts on this card. I would love to hear your thoughts on this one in the comments down below. Huge thank you to my patrons. I'll have their names here on the screen. If you'd like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like and subscribe. I post every single day. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.